Welcome to NHA Today, where we explore the path to lasting health and fulfillment through a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. Each week, we bring you real conversations with doctors, health experts, and everyday individuals who've transformed their lives through food, mindset, and community. This is NHA Today, powered by the National Health Association.
All right, Hannah, thank you so much for being a guest today. I'm so excited to interview you for the National Health Association podcast. This is so much fun and just getting to reconnect with you again, because for those of the individuals here that don't know, Hannah and I, we go way back. We met on social media, but just have so much in common with wanting to help people through plant-based nutrition, and Hannah specifically working with cancer patients, and you specifically went through a lot of this yourself. And so would really love to dive into what kind of got you started in all of this, what your journey is like, and we'd love for you to just tell the individuals listening like who you are and what you're about.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Peacock, for having me here. First of all, I'm so excited to talk with you and love reconnecting with you as always. So what got me started with oncology nutrition was my own journey with cancer in 2006, when I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And of course, I did the conventional treatment, but I also discovered dietary and other holistic modalities along the way to help me with my own treatment. So I ended up doing a deep dive into the research on diet and cancer and the link, and how I could support my chemotherapy and radiation treatment alongside other modalities. And so diet became a huge staple in my healing, my recovery, and now in my remission maintenance phase. So essentially, I discovered that a whole food plant-based diet was the optimal way to eat, to not only help me get through treatment and enhance my outcomes, but also to enhance survivorship, essentially, and help to prevent recurrence of a secondary cancer or the primary cancer or any other chronic diseases that cancer patients are sadly more susceptible to. So that's what got me started.
Oh, you're doing such amazing work. And I always love to just hear people's stories, because ultimately, I find the people that are just so passionate about the work that they do, it's because they kind of went through it themselves, right? And so you can really empathize and be there for the people you work with. And I think that's part of it too, is just being that voice and that, that ear actually for people to like tell their story to. And, that's a big part of it. Is it's such a struggle with what so many individuals with chronic illness are going through, and to have someone that really gets them, like from a practitioner perspective too, I think is really important. So I would assume that the clients you work with probably love working with you, because they just they get that you get them. And that's probably a part of the whole treatment process too, is just feeling heard.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I found was missing with my own treatment initially, when I was working with an initial oncologist. I did not feel heard at all. I asked, like all cancer patients ask, what can I do at home? What self-care modalities can I incorporate at home to help my treatment? And my initial oncologist said, there's nothing you can do. We're just going to do chemo, radiation, surgery. What you eat, it doesn't matter. Any other lifestyle modalities don't matter. And I just knew in my gut, I just knew that was just not correct. That wasn't aligned. And so now when I work with my clients, the initial thing is the primary goal is to make sure that they are heard, that they know that there is so much they can do on their own at home, and to work alongside their medical treatment, and to help them really feel like they can reclaim their strength, their vitality, clarity along the other modalities that have to come alongside medical treatment. And so, yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's just being heard as a patient going through something, so scary. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I would love to kind of dive into then something I've seen you chat about on your Instagram and social media, is talking about kind of like the pillars of cancer recovery. You mentioned SOAR, like S for suppressing, O through optimizing, A through activation, and then R through reducing treatment side effects. So I'd love to have you maybe just dive into a little more detail about what each of those stand for, and then would like for you to then, as a secondary question, just kind of talk about how does a plant-based diet then help through these things specifically?
Exactly. How does it fit into that mold, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with what I do in my private practice, I do work with people during and after cancer treatment. I work via a whole food plant-based nutritional therapy approach to help guide them through their treatment, to help enhance their treatment outcomes, reduce side effects, and essentially improve survivorship. And so to do that, I found that to use nutritional therapy as and food as a tool, I actually developed like what you just talked about and mentioned, the SOAR framework, which is SOAR, not SORE. And so I developed this framework to help guide my clients through treatment and to help to empower them, to give them a clear model of where we're going, and to help them reclaim their power, right? Their self-management power. And so SOAR stands for, as you said, suppress, optimize, activate, reduce. And so suppress stands for suppress cancer cell growth. And with that, we're working with specific phytochemicals found in scientifically proven cancer-fighting foods that all happen to be plant-based, of course. And so these phytochemicals are essentially, we found for decades now that certain phytochemicals influence the traditional hallmarks of cancer. So certain pathways, and I'm sure you're familiar with many of them, certain pathways like mTOR, AMPK, P53, Notch signaling are influenced by certain phytochemicals. And the phytochemicals then influence the hallmarks and contribute to the hallmarks of cancer. The hallmarks of cancer, as we know them, there are many, and they include metastasis, they include uncontrolled cell growth, evasion of the immune system, essentially hiding from the immune system, evasion of growth suppressors, inflammation. The list goes on and on. And so we found that these certain phytochemicals in foods are essentially similar to a non-toxic chemotherapy. And so they influence these pathways in a way that helps to suppress tumor growth, suppress tumor growth, and also block tumor angiogenesis or blood vessel formation, support the immune system, support detoxification, and several other mechanisms that help to suppress cancer cell growth. So we know that we can literally use food as medicine in this capacity by focusing on phytochemicals. So that's the suppress pillar. So I'm all about phytochemicals, essentially. Yeah. They are the key. And then with optimization, optimize stands for optimized nutritional status. So with that, we work with not only looking at, is the client getting enough, macronutrients, but also micronutrients. So again, phytochemicals come into play there. And we're looking at essentially enhancing someone's nutritional status so that they can better endure treatment. Because we know that malnutrition or a severe form of malnutrition, cachexia, is actually linked with poorer treatment outcomes and reduced survivorship. So we're looking at, is this person getting enough protein, fats, carbohydrates, the macros in their diet, but also are they meeting their micronutrient adequacy? So B12, vitamin D status, iron, zinc, albumin, etc. And so we're looking at that. We're monitoring their blood work, making sure that everything is adequate with that. And plant-based nutrition, of course, we're focusing on healthy sources of macros, like healthy proteins specifically to help preserve lean muscle mass and support the immune system. So you're familiar with all of these foods, of course, tempeh, tofu, nuts, seeds, edamame, beans, lentils, etc. We're looking at those, and even, single ingredient, clean sources of protein powders in that case, which you've taught me a lot about, actually.
Oh, I love that.
in my own work with you for my own health concerns. And then we're also looking at supporting the gut microbiome with plant sources of a variety of different fibers. So, we're aiming for 30 or 40 fiber sources per week, of course. And we're making sure that that client is meeting those targets as well. And then with activate, we're looking at activating the innate healing mechanisms in the body that, again, are not really talked about in conventional cancer care. But, our own body is smart, and we know how our own body has these built-in natural mechanisms, including angiogenesis, including immunity, of course, gut microbiome, DNA repair, stem cell regeneration. And we can use food to activate all of those. So, for example, kiwi fruit is incredible for DNA repair, right? And all of these foods are also plant source or plant-based. essentially, or primarily, I should say. And we're looking at angiogenesis. For example, blueberries are anti-angiogenic. Green tea can be anti-angiogenic. Immune system, we're looking at foods like mushrooms, right? For example, garlic, onion, the allium family, supporting the immune system. So again, plant-based. With stem cell regeneration, another component that I work with my clients with is fasting. So using the fasting mimicking diet, referring them to, Dr. Walter Longo's clinic for that, so that they're medically supervised. And then the last pillar is reduce, and this is the one that I'm probably even more passionate about than all the others, is because this is where we're looking at reducing the side effects of treatments like chemo, like radiation and immunotherapy even. And so most like my oncologist didn't really tell me about the long-term side effects or the long-term toxicities of treatment that I might be looking at in 10 to 15 years after my chemo, my radiation that I'm dealing with now, which is why I've been working with you, Dr. Peacock, a lot. And so with reduce, the pillar is specifically focused on reducing not only the short-term side effects of chemo, radiation, etc., like nausea, fatigue, brain fog, immune system suppression, and digestive issues, but also looking at long-term side effects like neuropathy, like liver damage, kidney damage, cardiotoxicity, immune suppression again, thyroid issues right here, digestive issues, right? Looking at those. And so I'm really passionate about educating clients about what can happen as a result of some of their treatments, and using foods, specifically whole plant foods, to help to really reduce their side effects. Like, for example, ginger with nausea, or peppermint tea with nausea, using glutamine sources for supporting the GI tract during chemotherapy, using specific other holistic remedies to support other side effects. For example, for neuropathy, we would be using more of a targeted supplementation with B complex as an example, or foods that are really rich in B complex. And then looking at, again, the long-term toxicities and making sure that they are incorporating the diet that's been proven to help to reduce cancer risk for decades, which is a whole food plant-based diet, and really incorporating that into their daily routine to help to support remission, essentially.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. What I love about your 4 pillars, and thank you for going into the detail that you did and giving examples, because it's just, again, it just like reiterates and drives home the point that how powerful like this way of eating is, because it's such a lifestyle. Like, not only is it helping with, our gut support and maybe like immune support, but it's supporting the ability for the body to be able to fight off pathogens, to be able to keep the body so healthy, to be able to, even work through like potential diagnoses that, like, cancer diagnoses, or in my own case, I'm working with a lot of people that are struggling with mold illness and chronic illness in that respect from their environment, and being able to support the body innately with nutrition that it was meant to consume on a daily basis. These phytochemicals, these beautiful macronutrients, everything that can come from plant-based foods helps to support these different pathways and suppressing inflammation, which we know inflammation is really that driving point that is causing everything. And so if we can kind of get to the root and cause the inflammation to decrease, there's so much that we can do for the body. And I love that you have these pillars, because it's such a whole well-rounded effect where you're not looking at just like one piece, you're looking at all these different pieces, like not just what are we doing currently, but how can we help to reduce things long term, because that is so, so key. So I love that you're doing that. And one of the parts that you talked about that I want to dive just a little deeper into is the macronutrient piece, because as we all know, plant-based foods are filled with all the amazing phytochemicals, micronutrients, like all these things that we hear about that are so good for us and that are important. But I think oftentimes, even just aside from talking about cancer treatment, we forget about the importance of like the macronutrients, the beautiful fats, the protein requirements that our body might need, especially depending on our age and our activity level. And in the case of cancer, I know that you might need more protein requirements than an individual of the same age that isn't going through this. So can you dive a little deeper into what are some of the protein requirements that are necessary like for cancer treatment, and then maybe dive again into some of like your favorite food sources for that as well?
Great questions, Dr. Peacock. And honestly, I think what you also hit home with the fact that this type of dietary pattern does address so many systems. It's not just about cancer,
Everything.
it's about everything, right? Just really supporting the machine that is the body. But regarding the macronutrients, so exactly, cancer patients they require more protein than the average person during treatment, because chemotherapy radiation actually increases the metabolic activity in the body. So you actually need more protein, and you want to really support essentially your lean muscle mass, because that can be something that a lot of people will struggle with during treatment. So what we want to do is we want to aim for 1.2 to 1.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight.
Okay.
Right. And so I always advise my clients to calculate that, to use an app like chronometer.com or MyFitnessPal or whatever, to really calculate what their target should be daily. And so again, we're looking at healthy, smart sources of protein. So getting away from the animal sources of protein that can drive, insulin like growth factor and, other growth signaling pathways.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at the protein sources from plants. My favorites, truly, when someone is going through chemotherapy, like you suggested for me, I recommend a single ingredient, clean source of plant protein that they can add, like a powder that they can add to their smoothie, they can add to their oatmeal or porridge or whatnot in the morning. So something like a pumpkin seed protein powder or pea protein powder, or both, combination of both, get that amino acid profile. And then other sources, of course, are tofu. I love adding soft tofu, silken tofu to soups. I love adding tempeh to stews, sauces, maybe not sauces, but to stews and soups as well. Maybe burger patties. Edamame. I think edamame is such an underrated source of protein for plant-based eaters, right?
Totally. I would agree with that. 100%.
It has such a great amino acid profile, and you can add it to quinoa and maybe some, a nice tahini sauce or hummus, and just mix it all together, and you have a simple high protein meal, for example, right? Other sources, of course, nuts and seeds, other beans and lentils than edamame, right? So those are my top sources of protein. But again, if you're looking at, I recommend, green smoothies a lot of the time for most people, if they're able to handle it. But even if you're looking at a green smoothie and you're adding 6 cups of kale or spinach, you're also getting quite a bit of protein. So
yeah, there's a lot of protein. Yeah.
So just educating people about the sources of protein is also really essential, and making sure that, when they're looking at a protein source or a carbohydrate source, looking at the package, like how much fiber are you getting, how many phytochemicals, and what is the packaging of that protein.
I love it. I love it. I love that you mentioned the tahini sauce, because I know that's something you and I always talk about. We're like, we love our tahini sauce to put over our little Buddha bowls. Yes, the best. I love making homemade dressings. It's such a great way to also implement like a lot of just like herbs and spices and things too, right? So it's a great way to, to your point that you're driving home, where it's like how many different amazing plants and all these things can you get in? It's like sauces, homemade sauces and dressings and soups are like a great way to do that, because you can really put a lot of things in to really pack it in. So I love that. On the topic of favorite foods, then, what are maybe some, you've already kind of addressed a few of your favorites in terms of blueberries and turmeric and these different things that support those different pathways you're mentioning before, but are there any foods that are kind of consistent across the board, or some of your favorite foods that you love to implement for those going through cancer treatment?
Great question. So I love Dr. Greger's app with the Daily Dozen. I think that is actually a really great resource for people just to use on an app or his website, because many of those foods, majority of those foods, are actually the foods that have been scientifically proven to help fight cancer. And so these include foods like flaxseed, soy, whole soy foods like, again, tempeh, tofu, edamame, miso, natto, turmeric, berries. We've got cruciferous vegetables. I think those are, again, underrated. We want to aim for at least 1 cup a day of cruciferous vegetables, right? They're an incredible, especially in the line of work you do with detoxification, those are the main foods for, right? Liver detox. So I always stress those. So even, kale, a lot of people don't realize that kale is a cruciferous vegetable. I love steamed kale
Yeah.
or kale in your smoothie or whatever. Cruciferous vegetables are essential. Then we also have, again, sources of protein that we already talked about, and other foods that I incorporate in my plans for clients. Usually green tea. I love like an organic sencha, Japanese sourced green tea. That's actually an easy way to help people. One easy way to help to incorporate that would be in a smoothie, for example, if they don't like drinking green tea. So just adding the powder into a smoothie. I'm just trying to think of any other foods that are primary for me. Purple sweet potatoes, really high in anthocyanins, right? Also, you mentioned inflammation as being such a huge factor in cancer development pathways. So with inflammation, we want to look at omega-3 rich foods, right? So hemp hearts, chia seeds, flaxseed, walnuts, leafy greens. Another source of omega-3s are leafy greens, which we don't really talk about. Maybe targeted supplementation with algae oil, because omega-3 has been shown to enhance cancer treatment, so enhance chemotherapy in most cases as well.
So I'm seeing such a parallel between the foods you're recommending and a lot of the foods that I recommend as well for detoxification, and especially the steamed kale. Steamed kale, actually 2 cups of steamed kale has been shown in research to be an incredible binder for mycotoxins. And so yeah, it's so, different things that you're mentioning. I'm like, yes, this is like cruciferous veggies, so important for giving you all the richness to support the liver and detoxing. I mean, it's incredible. So it's just, it all kind of boils down to almost not even overcomplicating things, but it's just like, how many of this variety of like these different plant foods can you get in? But thank you for highlighting some of those important ones that you'll recommend for people. I know I see in your stories on Instagram, you're eating these, you live by what you preach. I mean, you actually eat these foods daily. I've noticed that, and I love that. So, it's so important to show people that, it's not just about when you're going through it. It's like after, again, like you're mentioning with the side effects and things like that. So important. And I was curious, is it depending on like the diagnoses of cancer, per person, do your treatment recommendations maybe change? And you don't need to go into like too much detail in terms of like the actual specific foods, but do they change in terms of like maybe either protein requirements or the types of foods you'd maybe recommend based off research that showed like these X, Y, and Z foods help better with maybe prostate cancer versus breast cancer, things like that?
Yeah, that's another great question. And that's something that I talk to my clients about a lot. And I try to educate people on is that, yes, there is a dietary pattern that we want to focus on, but there's also specific targeted dietary interventions that are more effective, more beneficial for certain cancers, not only certain cancer cell lines, but also certain treatments. Like if someone's going through a colorectal cancer and they're having surgery and, they're getting colon resection, then we're looking at, maybe less fiber in their diet, essentially. Right. But in terms of cancer fighting foods for different cancers, that exactly. So when we're looking at breast cancer, for example, that's hormone driven, then we want to target foods that are anti-estrogenic, for example, like soy is one of those anti-estrogenic foods, right? Berries, another anti-estrogenic food. Cruciferous vegetables, another one. And flaxseed, another one. So the list goes on and on. When we're looking at other types of cancer cell lines, for example, colorectal cancer, again, walnut extract, I don't know if I mentioned this, and purple potato extract has been shown to be specifically powerful against those cancer cell lines, right? When we're looking at certain cancer stem cells, we can also find foods that have been shown to target specific cancer stem cells. For example, in breast cancer with green tea can target breast cancer stem cells, and sulforaphane and cruciferous vegetables can target cancer stem cells, which are like the beating heart of the tumor. So yes, there are different interventions for different cancers, but some foods remain pretty universal. And I forgot to mention garlic and the allium family. That is another really powerful family, right? Again, for detoxification, for immune system, we don't want to forget garlic. The World Health Organization actually recommends 1 garlic clove raw per day. It's that powerful against cancer. So let's not forget those, and whole grains and legumes I didn't mention either. So they're all important.
Yes, get your diversity in. Oh my gosh. Well,
100%.
incredible. Thank you for kind of going into some detail about that. That's so fascinating and really good to hear that it's, again, that's why working with someone like you is really, really important, because it's not just like, you read, or you hear on a podcast like, oh, these different plant-based foods are really good, but it's like depending on what you're diagnosed with can definitely change like what you need to really be honing in and focusing on. And on that note, kind of my final question in regards to like your recommendations for people is like, we've been talking about food this entire time, but again, there's other things that influence, cancer treatment too. And so what are some other lifestyle recommendations that you might be making for some of your clients as well, aside from food?
Aside from food, and another great question, because it is, it's holistic. We should be like using a holistic integrative approach to healing. Cancer is so multifaceted. We need to really target it from different angles, and food is essential, of course, and treatment is essential, but there's also other modalities we can incorporate. So I love to educate people on the benefits of exercise. So exercise has been shown to really truly increase our natural killer cell ability, the activity of our natural killer cells in the body, to enhance treatment outcomes, to help preserve lean muscle mass during treatment, of course. I also talk a lot about forest bathing, getting those phytonicides from trees to, again, stimulate natural killer cell ability. I often refer to, for acupuncture. Acupuncture has been shown to really help to reduce the treatment side effects of chemo and radiation, like nausea, help to stimulate the immune system, balance out the nervous system. And other modalities include sauna therapy for certain people. And again, certain treatments, you have to really be careful with what you're recommending, including food. Some foods that are healthy, like for example, green tea or turmeric, can be contraindicated with specific treatments. So we have to be a little bit careful there. And sauna therapy is one of those lifestyle modalities that we have to be cautious with. And other modalities I recommend, I often refer out to a homeopathic physician that we have locally here in Vancouver for detoxification purposes, or I'll refer out to a naturopathic oncologist for detoxification purposes, or an herbalist, a certified herbalist as well. But yeah, I tend to focus on movement. And another huge factor I completely forgot about is the mind-spirit connection. So when we're looking at going through cancer treatment, this is essential for my own healing, is really connecting with your body, really connecting with your spirit, and then using certain exercises, activities to really help to stimulate healing mechanisms through that. So meditation, prayer, yoga, breathing exercises. It's just so essential to really tap into that inner energy and to activate our healing mechanisms through the mind spirit modality as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. You really are such a wealth of knowledge in this field. And I love that you also, have referrals and, because again, like we can only wear so many hats and be able to do so many things. And so I love that you will refer out to certain individuals, maybe for more targeted detoxification support, or maybe you even, have them see somebody for that mindset piece, or for like working on breath work, or even the acupuncture piece, like all these different things. Like I love that, because again, that's so important, is looking at what can we do to help this person? Like what state are they in and what may they need? Because every person's different. What led them to their diagnoses is different. And so each person is going to require a different individualized holistic recommendation set of things. So you are wonderful. Thank you so much for your time and energy today, and would love to just leave it with, if you have any final words for the listeners and where people can find you and work with you.
Thank you so much for those kind words. Right back at you. And so if you can find me at backtobalancenutrition.com. I'm also on Instagram. I'm the most active on Instagram, I would say, at Back to Balance Nutrition. And regarding any final words, I just want to highlight how important the nutrition piece really is. Food is essential to our survival. It's incredible. It's pleasurable, but it can also be used as a tool in clinical practice. So we really want to I just want to make sure that people know that when they're going through cancer treatment, there is so much they can actually do, and it starts at home.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Hannah, for the encouraging words and for telling everyone where they can find you and work with you. So it was such a pleasure getting to interview you. Thanks again for being a guest.
Thank you so much.